Um, Living wage. My name's Michael Millward. I am the volunteer chair of the CIPD's North Yorkshire branch. I'm also on their national council and I lead the HR Leaders Network for the North of England. Last December, I was made the CIPD Showcase Volunteer, one of two for 2015. It's rather a pleasing thing, but essentially it means I did a lot of things for free and a lot of volunteering over a long period of time. I've been involved with the CIPD committee in North Yorkshire now for 10 years. I stand down in May, so if anybody is in North Yorkshire, those people in Wetherby and York and Scarborough, and they're interested in HR, then they're very welcome to stand for the committee. Carol, you're losing the sound. I think that might be just I'm moving the microphone closer to my mouth so I can hear it a little bit better. But if anybody does miss things, then we can see what we're doing. Right, now a little bit more about me. There we go, click that button there. She started in HR in 1981. There's a little picture of me there on the right hand side. Right, so getting good sound for some people, it's patchy for others, but hopefully you can hear me. Started my career in North Yorkshire and the Harrogate, and then eventually went all around the world, ending up in Hong Kong. Came back from Hong Kong in 2001, did a master's degree in HR, and then set up my own business called Abacida. As part of that, got involved with the CIPD, delivered CIPD qualifications. I'm now also delivering ILM and CMI qualifications as well, Ambassador for National Training Awards. It's unusual, I suppose, for an HR person to put the Simpsons logo and the Bloomberg logo and BBC logo on a slide all about their career. But I worked with the Simpsons organisation to create a range of health and safety education resources featuring the world's most famous and yet the world's least competent health and safety manager, Homer Simpson. I worked with Bloomberg organisation to create a news-based management development tool which uses the news and case studies from the news in order to create learning experiences. And I also done things with the BBC, having a local radio station and national news, national television news, basically people having an HR related phone in on BBC Radio York. You can see on the left hand side the various different Abacida logos in our companies. So Abacida was the logical employee management. H2R is our employee management system, which includes hiring. It's called hiring to retiring. We cover all the stages of the HR relationship. And you have the Simpsons, Carol. Congratulations! Brilliant. Thank you. We'll talk later on. I would like to know what sort of impact they've had with you. And Workplace Learning Centre is where you can find all the Simpsons products. There's almost 100 now. And Workplace Learning Centre is a brand, and Workplace Insurance Centre is how we sold things. We basically achieved results in reducing accidents and near misses with the Simpsons and took that to insurance companies who gave us a discount for our clients on their insurance, employers' liability insurance. So that's a little bit about me. I've been working on the national living wage now with various different types of organisations, both corporate organisations, public sector organisations and the voluntary sector, and trying to work out ways in which they can address the different issues that they will face as a result. Now,
Michael, can I just stop you there for a second? I just want to mute everybody and then unmute.
To unmute your line, press *6 or #6.
There you go, Michael. Just there's a lot of interference there, so off you go. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Just want to clarify when we start with some of the facts about the national living wage, what it will be and how it applies. So as from April 2016, less than a few weeks to go, the national living wage will apply to every worker aged 25 and above. Initially, it will be £7.20 per hour for part-time and full-time workers, and it will rise to £9 per hour by 2020. The national minimum wage will continue for people who are aged between 18 and 25, and that will be £6.70 at the moment. Everybody should be receiving those amounts of money. We've seen people already organisations already announcing that they are national living wage organisations. And there is some confusion about what the national living wage is, because there is also the National Living Wage Foundation, and they have a rate which is somewhat higher. And then in London, there is the London living wage, which is, again, is slightly different and takes into account the higher costs of living in London, which some organisations used to have a London weighting for jobs that were in London, saying the London living wage, the national living wage, the national minimum wage, and the living wage foundation wages are all different figures. The figures on that slide are the legal figures which you must pay. You can choose to pay over and above that if you wish to. Okay, so some of the background. Oh, I'm pressing the wrong button here, Liz. Right, there's some more facts. I've got some questions here which I would like you to have a think about and perhaps give me an answer to. How many people in the country are currently paid less than the national living wage? How many millions of people are paid less than the national minimum wage? 5, Joanna. 2. 7. 10. Right. A wide range of figures there. Right. Okay. Well, congratulations, Emma. It is 6 million people. And what percentage of working people it is? Well, it's interesting that you would just guess at a figure, but it's a very large percentage, really, of the people who are working. And what percentage of working people does that 6 million people make up? What percentage of people would you say was that 6 million? You want to get 85? 40? Any other guesses? 30? Remember, we have about 60 million people in the United Kingdom. So 6 million people is 10% of the total population. It's about 25% of the UK working population are currently paid less than the national living wage. Right? So, when we look at the national living wage, how much will it cost to bring everybody up to the national living wage, bring those 6 million people out of poverty? And poverty is a word I use because the national living wage is the wage at which you would need to earn in order to live an acceptable standard of living in the United Kingdom. Right? What percentage rise in the national wage bill would be required to bring those people out of poverty? How much will it actually cost the average, well, the nation and the average organisation? A lot. You may be very much surprised, Carol. Anybody got any ideas? 20%? Okay, a lot, 20%. Any other ideas? And where have you got that impression that it would be a lot or it would be 20%? Where do you get the information that makes you think that that would be a reasonable figure to suggest? Just guessing, cool. The reason why I asked that is that I think there has been a lot of negative publicity about this in the media, about how much it is going to cost. But the actual figure is 1.5%. Right? 1.3% of the national wage bill. Right? An increase of 1.3% would raise 6 million people out of poverty. Okay, and yet many employers say they cannot afford to pay. Right. Do you work in organisations that would find it difficult to pay? Or is this something that is not going to be a worry to you? Yeah? Yeah, sure. Right. Okay. All right. I think when you look at the national living wage and the number of people in individual organisations who may be on that, you're talking about people who may be in quite manual jobs. And there won't be that many in each individual organisation. Part of the problem can become the knock-on effects, and we'll talk about those. But if you increase one person's pay, you reduce the differential between them and someone else. And as a result, you need to increase other people's pay as well. Right? So you increase one person's pay, you have to reduce the differentials for seniority, for extra skills. You can have to increase both sets of wages, and that's where a lot of the added cost will be. Now, does anybody know what this picture, or what inspired this picture?
Ah, yes. Oh, yes.
Right?
Can I
Three
just
different
interrupt?
hats, yes.
Lovely. Whilst people are typing, for some reason I can't actually unmute people on the line today because it knocks Michael off. So if you do know your number, please can you mute yourselves, because it's sort of, we can hear everything that you're saying, unfortunately. I'm sure you probably wouldn't want that. So if you do know that you are dialing in, please, if you have the option there to either merge your name with your phone number and then I can mute you, or mute your own line as well, whether that be on your telephone or on the software system. But I'm sure that people don't want that to be the case.
Okay.
Off you go. Sorry, Michael. Okay, that's my answer.
No problem at all. This is a picture which I pulled together because it was inspired by a very famous clip on a comedy program on the BBC, Three Hats, and the time when it was produced, the three hats denoted the three different classes in the UK: the working class, the middle class, and the upper class. And the three actors who were involved, or three comedians who were involved, were Ronnie Corbett, Ronnie Barker, and John Cleese. It was on That Was the Week That Was, or The Frost Report. I've forgotten off the top of my head now, but it was identifying. I won't tell them how long ago it was, Carol, but I think it was in black and white. The whole basis of it was that people look up to other people, they look down on other people. But in this case, all I wanted to sort of highlight was the need that if you increase the pay of the person at the bottom on the national living wage, you're reducing the differentials between them and the people they report to, right? And you're also reducing the differential then between them and other people. So you have to increase the pay of everyone in order to maintain your differentials. And that can mean long, protracted negotiations with trade unions and with employee representatives. It can mean readjusting national agreements in order to accommodate the increase in pay at the lower levels and move it up a little bit so everybody changes. Just a final point there on that, Carol. Some of the people weren't born when it was first shown, but you and I both know it because we've watched repeats. That's a fact. Right? So you've got to think about, when you say your organization will not be affected by it, if you've got one or two people who are affected by it, everybody in your organization will be affected, because you have to deal with the differentials between the different grades of employees and move people up. And you can also have a situation where you have somebody at the moment on national minimum wage who's over the age of 25 who will go to the national living wage, and also have people below that age barrier who will still be on the national minimum wage. And how are you going to deal with those people? All this sort of stuff. So those are sorts of issues. We have had reports of employers saying they're only going to recruit people who are under the age of 25 in order to keep their wage bill down, but people have a habit of getting older. How are they going to cope with that? It will then just perpetuate, and it will delay the problem actually hitting the business. But that is one of the issues that I think when people say it won't affect us, you have to think about. Right, exactly. And Carol's just saying there that the organisation she works in won't address the differential issue at all. I'm suggesting that if you don't address the differential issue, you will end up with upset people in that middle area who are seeing the differential between them and people reporting to them, or people with fewer skills than they have, earning more money, if you don't address that differential, somebody else will be. Some other organisation will be addressing that individual differential, and they will be thinking about moving to those organisations which will pay them the premium for their additional skills or their additional responsibilities. That's a sad fact of the world in which we live in. Now, I wanted to look at also making the ways in which it's going to be affordable. The national living wage is a way in which the government is transferring the burden of in-work benefits, social security benefits from the government to employers. And at this point, if I click on, Liz may have to explain to me how to do it, but I was interested in how many people receive some form of in-work benefit. There we go. Right. Okay. Are you receiving some form of in-state benefit, even though you are working? Right. Now you may need to think about what a state benefit may be. If you're a parent and you receive child benefit, that is a state benefit. Some people may receive the universal credits. Some people may receive tax rebates, these sorts of things, tax credits. Right. It looks like 3/4 of people don't receive some form of benefit, and 28% do. Right. The majority of benefits paid in the United Kingdom are paid to people who are in work. So in many ways, our government supports low-paid workers through the payment of benefits. The government wants to reduce its benefits bill. One of the ways in doing that is to transfer the cost of those benefits to the employer. Now, in the short term, some of the things which are happening in order to make employers find the national living wage more affordable include a reduction in corporation tax. It's been cut by 2%, right, to offset what is predicted to be a 1% impact on profits. Because obviously, we've identified that 1.3% increase in the wage bill will take the employees out of poverty and pay for the national living wage. So corporation tax comes down. That means that every employer should be able to afford to pay the national living wage. That's if you do the maths type of thing. There's also going to be extra help for small firms. The new employment allowance would go increase by 50% to £3,000. That's if you take somebody on into a job, take somebody from the employment register. You can employ 4 full-time workers on the new national living wage and pay no national insurance on those people at all. And so again, trying to encourage people to take on more workers, trying to make people realise that the national living wage should be affordable because of the reduction in corporation tax. Okay, but we also need to bear in mind the Social Value Act from 2012. Was anyone any experience of the Social Value Act from 2012? Right. Okay. Now, the Social Value Act, it's something which applies to organisations who tender for public work in the main. There are other aspects of it as well, but essentially it says if you get work from the public sector, you are going to have to demonstrate how you are adding value to the society as well as giving people work. So what is it that you are putting into the society? The national living wage would be one of those. It can affect the work that builders do in terms of building houses, building shops, building factories. What else are you doing? Are you erecting bus stops? Are you erecting libraries, schools? These sorts of things in order to support that. So it's all about making corporate social responsibility something that can be assessed within a tendering process or a planning application or a decision to move an organisation and look for planning permission for all those sorts of things. So paying the national living wage would help to make sure that you're complying with that piece of legislation, although if you don't pay the national living wage, you could end up in court anyway. So there are all sorts of various different penalties that will be coming in for that. And those penalties will be covered in the national living wage and the employment law sector as well when Marie does that. Okay, so let's look at it in more detail. We wanted to look at the national living wage and think about what that would mean for the average organisation. And we looked at all sorts of different statistics and research that had taken place. So we already talked a little bit earlier on about supply and demand. And if you don't maintain the differentials between people who are managing people on the national living wage and the people on the national living wage, those managers are likely to think about moving. Right? The national living wage becomes your basic salary. No one will be paid below that. So in order to achieve some sort of advantage of the labour market, organisations that can will end up paying more. So your national living wage should always be seen as a bare minimum. What else can you afford to pay? What is the market rate for the job that you're employing people to do? And how are you going to manage making sure that you can pay that on a regular basis? Lots of organizations will pay what they can get away with, but because we have decreasing unemployment at the moment, and it's at a 7-year low according to the Office for National Statistics, the number of people available to work is decreasing. When I talk to job centres and job centre managers, they will tell me that the majority of people who they had affected by the unemployment that was created by the downturn and the recession since 2008 are now back into work. And the majority of people who are consulting with job centres are those with some sort of issue that makes it difficult for them to find work. Most people who are the people you want to employ, you're going to be poaching them from some other employer. And as a growing economy, there are going to be more and more people fishing for those people who are going to be good employees. And so not only are you going to have to deal with the market rates for an organization, you're also going to have to deal with the increased competition. You're also going to have to make sure that people work smarter and harder, and they're going to do that more likely if they're actually going to be paid more or rewarded in a way which supports the lifestyle they want to achieve. You've then also got the higher pay levels that are coming through. As jobs get more technical, more highly skilled, people wanting more money, you have the health and safety risks of people working harder and smarter, like having enough rest, and then you have a changing workforce. So remember that more and more people are prepared to work in temporary contracts. More and more people are prepared to move from one job to another in order to get what they want in terms of pay and benefits. So you shouldn't rely upon the fact that people have been there for a while, and you've got to think about your local employment market, the number of people that are available for work, whether they have the skills, knowledge, and attitude that you want, and then say, okay, what is the value of those people to my organization, and try and make that an offer which will attract them and retain them. That becomes the bigger picture outside of your organization. When people say they have no influence inside their organization and that people make these decisions without that HR input and without understanding the wider labor market, investigating these areas for your local environment are the bits that will help you gain the influence and explain why jobs are not being filled or why jobs are being filled by people who can't really do the jobs. You need to look into these types of areas. Unfortunately, there are people from across the whole country, and we can't do it city by city or town by town. And most of this is what we're seeing coming from research from PwC, from the ONS, from Deloitte, from the job centres, from the CIPD, and talking to individual HR managers and HR directors. So the solution, we need to think about engagement. We need to think about ways in which we can create an offer of employment which is not just about money, but also it's about benefits and the way in which people feel about work. We need to create an employer brand, and we say these sorts of things again and again and again, but we need to look at employment as a product which people buy or a service which people buy and say, what is it that is going to add into these people's lives? Everybody's got to pay the national living wage. So that's a done. You can't get out of that. But everybody else will be paying it as well. And you've got to create something which says, okay, the money isn't important. The money is important, but the lifestyle is important. The environment that I work in, the people that I work with, the culture of the organization that I work in, and create an employment offer which matches those people's needs. So you can adapt to the mother that wants to be able to pick her children up from school. You can adapt to the retired person the person who wants to earn lots of money. All of this needs to be included within your employment offer. It's not just about getting people to turn up on time and make, all the training you give them, the remuneration, the lifestyle benefits, all those sorts of things. And remember that people work and people go to jobs and stay in jobs where they feel as if they're being developed. When we look at the reasons why people leave, yes, money is one of the reasons, but there is also the reasons of not feeling as if they're being developed, not feeling as if they're being respected, not feeling as if they're being valued. And all the things on that slide are talking about building a relationship with your employee that can last from hiring to retiring, which is one of my things. That's what we should be doing as HR people, looking at how we can create a hiring to retiring type relationship. Right. So any comments or feedback on that? Always very interested to find out what you think. I know there are some HR buzzwords in there in terms of things like engagement and employee offers and all those sorts of things. But what is it that actually works inside your organizations? What would be the issues that you would face in trying to implement something for low-paid workers that dealt with the things that normally are dealt with for senior and highly paid professionals or technical people, right? Engaging people in their organization. Okay. And sum it up, companies need to create an appealing employment option that allows employees to achieve their lifestyle aspirations. And that, like I say, is all about the engagement, the involvement, improvements and shared values, creating an employment offer that appeals to people, deals with the lifestyle they want to achieve, trains them and develops them so they can help the organization grow, provide learning opportunities, and make sure that the money and the benefits match the lifestyle that they want to achieve. And I think Liz is going to be really impressed with me because she said to finish around about 1:35 with that and then ask, has anyone got any questions?
Thanks, Michael. Well done. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Has anybody got any questions that they'd like to raise at this point? We've got a few minutes left with regards to Michael's been available to answer questions. So if you have, just please type them in the chat box now. We can maybe spend the next 5 minutes or so answering those questions.
I suppose if people are connected by phone as well, they can shout them out.
Yeah, they can. If you've got your phone line there, if you've not muted yourself, and thank you to those people that have muted themselves. I really appreciate that.
The national living wage and salary sacrifice is that you must not allow someone to have a salary sacrifice benefit which takes the amount of cash which they take home below the national living wage level. Okay? So if you have a salary sacrifice which takes their pay below the national living wage, you can't have it. The cash at the end of the day must be above the national living wage.
The actual hardcore cash that's in their wage packet, not a benefit. It can't be made up of benefits to get to that point.
Yeah. You can't say, well, we're paying you we're paying you £5 in cash and the other part of the £7, whatever, is made up of benefits in kind. That's not possible. That's almost like going back to the days when the canals were being built and people would be paid in products or paid in tokens which they could only use in the company shop. Right. Salary sacrifice arrangements for pensions. I'm not a financial advisor. I can't answer questions about pensions specifically, but it's a salary sacrifice arrangement for a pension. It's exactly the same rule. This cash in somebody's pocket needs to be the national living wage, and that needs to be what they take home. Anything over and above that becomes is possible, but they must have the national living wage when they go home.
I wonder if there's a question there as well with regards to sort of the law on that. So that might be quite an interesting one for Marie, Kate.
Yes.
Is it Kate that asked that question? Or Karen, if you, by all means joins at the end of the month for that, because that could be something that Marie and Caroline might.
Okay, Carol has asked a very good point. Yeah, Carol's asked a very good point about take home, not pre-tax. Majority of people on the national living wage will not be paying tax.
Right.
Okay. The introduction of the national living wage is over 4 years. Will it go up again next year for over 25s? There is very much likely that it will be. So it's got to go up to £9 by 2020, and so it will not be like one big rise. It will go up in stages. Okay.
Staged approach. Thanks, Vicky. Yeah, good.
Yeah. In the same way as the national minimum wage has been increasing in stages.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Just was thinking tax and pension contributions could take the lower paid below the national living wage. Yes, exactly. They'd go below the national living wage, and that would mean that they would not be getting the national living wage, so they would not be taken out of poverty by having the national living wage. There are all sorts of issues associated with pensions and the introduction of the auto-enrollment pensions, so having to provide people with a pension. And that would be something we'd need to do in a different webinar. The national minimum wage likely to go up this year too. It seems to go up every year. A report is done of what is required for people to live, and that the pay goes up as a result of that. It's I would assume it's not automatic, but I would always assume that there is going to be an increase in the national minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's just typing something in as well. Right. So.
I think that's a good time.
Right. That changes the picture somewhat, I think. In which way does it change the picture, Carol? Let me know. You're probably right. We've probably got a couple of years to deal with getting the differentials sorted out and getting the higher end roles dealt with in terms of how much they are being paid.
Take on her.
Okay.
Yeah, let's change the picture, Carl. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that when you talk about take-home pay, what I'm saying is that national living wage is what somebody has to be paid per hour. The reality is that most of the people on that national living wage will not be paid. It will not be earning enough in order to pay tax. Right? So your question about having tax is they won't be paying it.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's safe to say, Michael, as well, if people have got sort of further questions and they want to sort of take this conversation
Yes.
on, and you're more than happy to sort of have that on a one-to-one basis, aren't you? So,
Oh, certainly, yes.
Do you want to just put your
problem at all.
email address or something into the chat box whilst I sort of finish off?
Oh, yes, I can do that.
And let people know how they can get hold of you. Because did I miss a slide here? Yeah, we've not got a thank you slide there. So just put your details into that, and then if people want to make a note of that, they can access that. So thank you very much. There's some more questions coming through. There's one more person just typing as we wait for that to come through. But thank you. Lots of things to think about there. Some surprising stats as well. Yeah, quite surprising indeed. So thank you for all the questions and all the participation that everybody took in this as well. Thank you, Michael, for doing that.
Pleasure.
Very, very quickly, we have mentioned it a few times now, we are doing the national living wage and the law with Marie Watt at the end of the month on the 30th of March, so please feel free to join us then. I have put the link up, but you should be able to click through some slides there. We've got a few more webinars coming up in between that period of time, but one of those is the Breakfast Club that we run, and it's about changing your behaviour and achieving anything with Jan Hills, and they are always very, very well attended, and lots of chat and lots of engagement and lots of ideas, I think, about how the brain works and what we can do to make ourselves more effective in employment. So please join us then as well. And we've got another 5 minutes or so. So I'm going to leave this slide up and leave you, if you want to join in and sort of deal with those questions as they come up, Michael, for the next 5 minutes, that's a really good use of time. I think for those people that have had enough, then, we can stick around and off you go. But it was lovely to stay. So please feel free to do so. And I'll pass it back to you, Michael, for the final 5 minutes. So thank you, everybody.
Okay. All right. Just to answer Vicky's question there about the allowance for the new employees, you organise that through the HMRC. You would need evidence that the person is where they've come from and how much you're paying them, all that sort of stuff. Lots of people saying thank you. You can see that my email address is there, michael.millward@abeceda.co.uk. And but yeah, for the grants, the employment allowance, the best place to go for that is the HMRC through the payroll. Right, and if I just go back through some of the points. we've got the thing about the differentials. I suppose in many ways, the differentials issue is the one which most people are forgetting, and yet it is the one which will have the bigger impact, I believe, on organisations than the introduction of the national living wage itself, because of the impact that it has on other people and the potential for causing grievances, claims of equal pay for equal work of equal value, the potential for people to leave, and the risk that you'll lose a lot of talent unless you can actually manage the responsibilities that people have within the organisation. But is taxed and has sacrifice benefits, which take them below their rate to be increased. I believe the answer to your question, Carol, would be yes. Yeah. They're currently on the national living wage or above the national living wage, but taxed and then salary sacrifice benefits take the salary sacrifice. If it is the salary sacrifice benefit element which takes them below the national living wage, then the national living wage would have to go up. The tax element is the bit which, if they're earning enough to be able to be paying tax, then that they would pay tax. Right. If you need any help with it, Carol, you have my email address. I'd be very happy to help you sort it out. Yeah. Which benefits you're providing them with. There's always they can still have the salary sacrifice benefit, yes, but if they have the benefit and having that salary sacrifice benefit takes them below the national living wage, you have to take them up to the national living wage in the same way as you had to with the national minimum wage. It's not something that is new. It has always been the case with the national minimum wage, and it will be the case with the national living wage, is that if your salary sacrifice benefits take you below the national level, either minimum or living, then you have to have an increase in order to cope with it. It's because the salary sacrifice is taken from you before you pay tax or national insurance. So as a result, it can't be included in the national calculation, whether it's been minimum or living wages. Okay. I'm glad so many people have found all this interesting, and like you said, the statistics, which it is shocking to think that there are 6 million people in this country who are reliant upon in-work benefits in order to be able to live to a standard of having food on the table and a warm house and all this sort of stuff. 6 million people, 10% of our total population. 25% of the people that work in the UK are reliant upon in-work benefits. The government is transferring that burden from the state to the employers. If something can't be afforded as a result, it can't be afforded, but it's probably better that way. The issue that it would only cost 1.3% of wage bills in order to take people out of that level, I think is also something which is quite salutary, but that's an average. It doesn't necessarily mean that that is what it will be in your organisation. But the main thing is that I don't want people to be frightened of the national living wage. I want them to see it as an opportunity. If you give something to people, even though if it's statutory, you have to give it to them, but it gives you an opportunity to talk with them, look at how they're going to make these affordable, and what you need to do in order to make work more interesting, exciting, and increase their productivity and efficiency as a result of that. So look upon it as an opportunity and build it into the way in which you employ people. I'm really grateful for your time.
Thank you, Michael.
Your interest.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm looking forward to the next time. Pleasure.
Yeah,
anytime.
not too far away. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. And in the next couple of seconds, I'm going to end the meeting. Thank you. Lovely to see you all again as well. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheerio.